Hey, welcome to week 2 of Run Towards It, a new eGroup series that myself and my good friend Jordan, welcome, buddy. I welcome you every week. I don't know why. You're still here.
I feel welcome.
Yeah,
That's good. It's working. It's working.
Yeah. Last week we had a great conversation talking about the fear of failure and that God hasn't given us a spirit of fear, which I think was a great discussion. This week's an interesting one because we're talking about distractions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get distracted, even in the midst of this series talking to you, I can wander off and I've got to remain focused. So for me, distractions, this is going to be quite a confronting challenge for me. But why, in terms of, we're talking about not avoiding things that could potentially be the very area that we might break through in.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
How's distraction, it seems really obvious, but how's distraction a big challenge for us?
Yeah, I think the key issue is that breakthrough is hard, right? And there's no such thing as, I wanted to lose weight, so I lost weight today. Like, it's always multi-day, weeks of effort or not even just effort. You actually have to concentrate, and there's all sorts of talk in the modern world about that we don't have the attention skill set that perhaps previous generations have had. But whether that's true or not, the issue is that for us to run towards doesn't just mean that moment of action. Often it's daily pushing to get somewhere, to focus on the things that really matter. And Charles Duhigg, I know a favorite author of yours, but he wrote a great book, The Power of Habit, and it's probably the best book on habit because it's partly because he's an entertaining writer, but it's also gives some actionable stuff. But one of some of the research he points in that book is that when people are like actual people who are engaged with a well-being coach or a personal trainer or a counselor or psychologist helping them through a change process, 70% of the people who fail, it's because they just got distracted with too many other things in life. A classic would be someone whenever I've tried to lose weight for my health, it's not because I don't understand it that I can't lose weight. It's because you get really, really busy, so then you buy having a pie for lunch or something like that, which is not the plan. Sticking to that plan, staying focused on the things that really matter is easier said than done.
Yeah. Probably got an initial opening gambit to pause here around. I like that thought, that distraction. Where have you maybe thought that you might be? I need to frame the question. Where have you felt like you have charged out ahead, or you thought you might, but you haven't, because a lot of those habits haven't been formed? Think about David. It's a long-winded question now. Think about David. David didn't just charge towards Goliath. So we're using David and Goliath story.
Yeah.
He didn't just run out towards him and we go, oh, what a champion.
Yeah.
But a lot of that was forged. So good thing in the moment, we all want to be David. We all want to have the courage and the bravery and the fortitude of David and the faith of David. But that was born out of a lot of habits. So maybe the question is, what are some habits that you formed in your own life? What are some daily disciplines that you've gone through? Or what are some things that maybe you haven't gone through? And it'd be really good to kind of pause and discuss that and how you're doing with habits now. How you like with habits?
I'm good at some habits.
Some habits, not others?
Yeah. I'm really good at bad habits.
Are you good at the habits that you like?
Yeah, I'm good. If I like. Yeah,
I think I'm okay with habits. I got better at habits over the years.
I think, yeah. To be honest, I think the more you understand the process, that it's not about winning at habits, it's about keeping engaged in building them. Like, if you're focused on, when will this become easy? I think that's where you trip yourself up, because you're waiting for that habit process to turn into a habit. It's like, it's a habit now. So, then you snap out, right?
I'm loath to do this, but there is a quote that I'm going to paraphrase just for safety.
Oh yeah.
I think, because I've shown a pretty poor history of quotes.
Quoting, yeah.
But that sense of.
It was the quote you said completely backwards. I
didn't talk about it. I'm trying to get people to laugh. I knew what I was doing, but I want you at home to just go, it's lighthearted.
You keep breaking the third wall.
But there's the sense of consistency being, a lot of little things being done over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Like that's even for discipleship, that's a great thing for us. A lot of little things that we do every day over a long period of time causes us to change in such a way. So then how do we lock into that? Because I had this point where for many years I thought, I saw my life like a X and Y axis, and you know how you have, let's say it's like a classic supply and demand for you economic students or whatever you call
They'll
it
be
now.
loving it.
Business
They'll be
studies,
loving
they'll be
it out
loving it. Oh, it's educational, I'll be saying.
Yeah.
But there was always like a dotted line, like an optimal point. And I used to think my life was like, when I get to that optimal point, then my life's going to be great. I'm doing all these things. I'm exercising spiritually, physically. All these things are going great, and then things are going to be amazing. But the distractions come in, and you go, it doesn't always work like that.
Yeah. I think there's a delusion there as well. Like there's
I was deluded. Yeah.
Sure. But there's a delusion somewhere that there's some point in life where everything's easy.
Or where things are just going to work out.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the challenge of middle age is you realise that maybe that's not you pursue
yourself.
Yeah, just doing from home. But if you've got friends who are older, like talking to my dad as well, like his life's never been easy. He's never expected it to be. It's always a challenge, and that's actually the thing that makes life meaningful and enjoyable, is that it is a challenge. It is a challenge to build a strong marriage. It is a challenge to be effective in your career or your workspace. It is a challenge to do these things, but these are also the most meaningful things in our life, and I think concentration is a real key thing. And there's just so much noise. There's so much noise, like your phone in your pocket, all that sort of stuff that just, I've got to do this, got to do that. I love in Luke 10, the story of Martha and Mary. They're hosting Jesus at their house. And Jesus just says, Martha, you're worried about all this stuff. You're worried about all this stuff. But he said to Martha, hey, one thing is important. And I think that's it's Jesus, right? We're not going to disagree, but it's really being clear, actually, in any given moment, what's the one thing that's important right now? Like we're at the dinner table with our phone. Hey, you're just missing it straight away, right? Because you're at the dinner table. You can be on your phone all the other times, right? But hey, you're at the dinner table. What's the one thing we're doing right here?
I did have a good idea.
Yeah.
For you at home. I've been thinking about this a lot. I haven't done it in my eGroup, but I was going to do it in my eGroup. You come to eGroup, all right, all the phones just go in a bucket, we put them away, and we focus on what we've got to talk about. And it's silly, but really, we don't need them. We don't need the distractions. We don't need and going back to your point, if you think about David, David does all this stuff, gets down to the battlefield, sees a giant just about to charge out and goes, oh man, I could really use a sandwich. That's not a story. We're not going to read about the famous David, Goliath slaying David if he got distracted and didn't do the thing. So I love your point about, life's not meant to be easy. It's not meant to be smooth sailing. It's not necessarily meant to be, but it's also not meant to be endured. But there's this sense of the process, that God wants to work a process in us. I love a book, Carl Martin wrote a book called Lead, and he says the whole time, you are the project. Like you are the person that God is working on all the time. We can often think, oh, this is great, this series for somebody else, but he's working on me. He wants me to remain locked in and focused on the things that he's given me to do, right? Because those are the things I'm going to give an account for one day.
Yeah, great.
I didn't tell you to do what Jordan did. I told you to do what Jake did. So maybe can we touch on putting on the spot? What was it about David, or what is it about us how do we remove the distraction? Like how do we practically find ways to not get distracted so that we can focus on what God called us to do?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it in a workplace setting, like you just have to be really strong with yourself. You have to turn the notifications off on your you can say, oh, I'm not going to be distracted, but until you turn the notifications off on your laptop so you can actually do the writing you need to do, if that's what you're doing, right? Or I know what you were saying about cell phones at eGroup. I was working with a roofing company. And the manager or the owner of the company, he's like 10 guys working for him. He'd get all their phones off them at the start of the day, lock them in the glove box of the truck, lock the truck. You have them at lunchtime. And because they're up on a roof, wind's blowing, they're holding sheets of iron or whatever. Yeah, and he's like, they're bidding for car parts on, they're on trade me or something. He's like, someone's going to die.
He just doesn't want the liability.
Yeah, his point was about someone's going to die on my building site because they're trying to get cheap car parts for their Subaru. It's like, we're just locking them away. So sometimes I think you just have to be, stop waiting for someone else to be your parent and actually be in charge of yourself and go, hey, when I wake up in the morning, the alarm goes off at 6, I open my Bible. You know, if you do anything else before that, you're not going to get your Bible reading done. Like that, you know, if that's how your brain works, right? And so, like, if it's a business deal, you get focused, or you don't get the deal, right? If it's a girl you're pursuing, you get focused, or she's going to say no, right? Right? She's not going to hang out with you. Like, you've got to get focused. And so sometimes I think we're robbed by distraction way more than we'd like to admit. You know, like.
And I think another book, and maybe this is a good way to close, but James Clear wrote that book Atomic Habits, which I found quite useful too. But he talked about that sense of habit stacking. So maybe a way to avoid distractions is habit stacking. And I'm paraphrasing because that's what I do now.
Well, it's a whole book. We know that you can quote the whole book, but we appreciate this paraphrase.
Just like a rabbi could do with the Old Testament. However, the sense of habit stacking is if I do this one thing, that's going to lead to the other thing as well. Yeah. So if you think about, if I've got to go for a run in the morning, I'm not going to just wake up in the morning, imagine, and go, yeah, I feel like I'm going for that run. I'll get my gear out the night before, I put it by the door, and I set the alarm and I do the things. So I go to bed early, but there's a process that triggers my brain to think that's what you're going to do so that you run in the morning. And I like that sense of habit stacking, or thinking about things. The Bible reading is a great one.
Yeah.
If we can just do that and give God the first of our day. But we start seeing change, we start seeing the fact that, I'm growing and my heart's being transformed, and that's a really good thing as well. So, any kind of final comments maybe around vision and how that sort of holds us, I guess, because they're good practical things, but is there a sense of, we touched on it last week, which I thought was really important about this individualism thing, right? But the distractions are not just for us, it's so that potentially somebody else can benefit from our focus.
Yeah. I think... Yeah, you do have to have a vision beyond just, I'm going to get up at 6. There has to be, you got to think about why are you trying to improve something or do better at something or face up to a challenge. Because part of what we're talking about is, hey, there's some stuff we know we should be doing better at, but we're avoiding it. We're not running towards that challenge, And so I think it's pretty hard to quantify the impacts that it can have, in terms of being a blessing for others, that sort of stuff, when you start sorting things out. But, sometimes it's just creating some space to think about what's really important. What do you want your life to look like?
Yep.
Is a really good question. I think we could all spend more time thinking about, when we're in a deathbed, who's standing around? Is anyone?
Yeah.
Is anyone standing around? When people hear that you've passed on? Yeah. Does anyone think, oh man, that person was a blessing to me? Or, and I think sometimes that's, is it the pain, the comfort of facing up to the challenges that are in our life now? We sometimes have to balance the equation. Yeah. It's not just pain and difficulty, it's actually about a blessed future.
Yeah, that's good.
So.
Yeah. Again, one more book reference, but Stephen Covey's 7 Habits talks about start with the end. One of them is start with the end in mind. Yeah, so think about the end in mind. Think about your life. Who's going to be there? What are the things that you wish you would have done? Yeah. We're in the moment now, so we can get to change our world. We can, again, with the Holy Spirit's help, we can get to remove some of these distractions. And I think a really good place to finish. But again, maybe some good things to discuss in your eGroups. What are some things that you need to start doing, or what are some
focusing on
things that you need to start focusing on now, so that again over time, there's those little things done consistently over a period of time, you'll start to see significant change in your world. But this has been Run Towards It week 2. We hope you've enjoyed it. Good things to discuss in your eGroups. We'll see you next week for week 3.